They sent me to a prison no one admits exists, a fortress buried beneath Rome, hidden behind stone walls older than the city itself. No trial, no court, just a gate of iron and a vow of silence. Father Paolo met me at the entrance. His robes were plain, his eyes black and sharp. He handed me a lantern and a key. "You will learn quickly," he said, "because hesitation here is death." He didn't waste time with welcome. He walked me through the first gate, the sound of the lock echoing like thunder. The air inside was cold, thick, and wet. Every step sank deeper into silence. "There are rules," Paolo said. His voice carried like stone, grinding on stone. "Break them, and this place will eat you." He raised a hand, counting each finger as he spoke. "Rule 1, pray when you pass cell 7. Always. Rule 2, do not look directly at the prisoner in white. Rule 3, if you hear knocking after midnight, do not answer. Rule 4, count every cell each morning, even the empty ones. Rule 5, never go down to the 13th step." He stopped walking. "Forget them once and you will not see the dawn." The corridor narrowed. The stone walls sweated with moisture, black mold crawling like veins. Torches burned weakly, their lights swallowed by shadows. I smelled incense, but underneath it, rot. Paolo opened another gate. The clang rattled the cells beyond. Faces pressed against bars. Hollow eyes stared. Whispers rose and fell like a tide. "These are priests," Paolo said flatly. "Men who betrayed vows, men who defiled sacraments. Vatican does not hang its own. We bury them alive." One prisoner laughed high and broken. Another muttered prayers through cracked lips. A third simply pressed his forehead to the bars, unmoving. Paolo kept walking. I followed, lantern shaking in my hand. Then we reached cell 7. The door was thicker, carved with Latin words I did not recognize. Paolo stopped. "Pray," he ordered. I hesitated. He turned his eyes on me, sharp as knives. "Pray, now." I whispered the words, my voice weak. The moment the prayer ended, the air shifted. The whispers stopped. Every prisoner fell silent at once. Then, slowly. From within cell 7 came a sound, a single breath, long, cold, inhuman. The stone floor trembled beneath my feet. Paolo gripped my shoulder. His fingers were like iron. "Never forget this gate," he said. We moved on. At the far end of the hall, I saw a man sitting in darkness, his hair tangled, his face pale. He stared at nothing, rocking slowly. Paolo whispered, "That is Elias. He has been here longer than anyone. Do not listen when he speaks." Elias turned his head, eyes clouded. His lips split into a smile that was more wound than joy. "Do not go down to the 13th step," he rasped. Paolo yanked me away. The gate slammed shut. "You hear nothing," Paolo said. "You repeat nothing. That is how you live." But the words clung to me. The 13th step. That night, in my cell above the halls, I could not sleep. The lantern flickered. The silence pressed close. And then, knock, soft on the stone wall. Knock. I held my breath. Knock. 3 times, slow, waiting. I remembered Paolo's words. Rule 3, do not answer. I clenched my fists, whispering prayers until my throat was raw. The knocking stopped, but in the silence that followed, I heard another sound. A voice, faint, crawling through the cracks. Emilio. It was my name. The keys were heavier than I expected. Father Paolo pressed them into my palm and walked away without a word. My first night alone. The corridor stretched ahead, a tunnel of iron doors and shadows. The lantern shook in my hand. Every flame here seemed weaker than it should be, as if the walls drank light. Elias was the first voice I heard. He gripped the bars of his cell, eyes gleaming in the dark. His lips cracked into a grin. "They all go down," he whispered. "Every one of them. 13 steps, 13 chains. You will go too." I kept walking. His laughter followed me, sharp and broken, echoing off stone until it sounded like a dozen voices. Further down, I reached the row where the prisoner in white sat. He was against the wall, head lowered, unmoving. I kept my eyes down, counting the torches instead of the cells. Then the iron groaned. His hands tightened on the bars. The sound crawled under my skin. I felt his gaze, though I never lifted mine. The urge to look was unbearable, a hook sinking into my mind, pulling harder with every step. Rule 2. Do not look at the prisoner in white. I bit my tongue, forced myself past. My jaw ached from the pressure. The silence deepened as I reached the far hall. Then it broke. Voices, low at first like the hum of bees behind stone, then clearer, rising, weaving together in broken harmony. A hymn, a choir, but not holy. The melody twisted, verses backwards, Latin syllables that should never fit together. It was like hearing prayer drowned in blood. The wailing choir. I froze. The lantern dimmed, shadows stretching long against the floor. The voices came from every wall, every cell, as if the stone itself was singing. I pressed my back to the gate, lips moving through a prayer I barely remembered. The choir grew louder. I heard words that bent into my name, stretched into shapes that scraped my bones. The prisoners were silent. Every one of them knelt in their cells, heads bowed as if worshiping something beneath us. The song swelled. The iron bars trembled. My knees almost gave out. Then it stopped. No fading, no echo. Just silence, sudden and absolute. The prisoners lifted their heads again as if nothing had happened. I forced myself forward, lantern shaking, sweat cold on my face. When the bell tolled above, I turned the keys with trembling hands and stumbled back into the chapel. I avoided Elias for 2 nights. His whispers clawed at my ears, but I walked faster, eyes on the lantern, prayers spilling through clenched teeth. On the 3rd night, he was waiting. He stood at the bars when I passed, his fingers wrapped around iron, his nails cracked and black. His smile was wide, too wide, stretching his face like a mask. "You walk like them," he said, stiff, afraid. But not afraid enough. I tried to ignore him. The keys rattled in my hand. "Do you know why the rules exist?" His voice was soft, steady. "Not for them, not for you. For what sleeps beneath." I stopped. I should not have. His eyes gleamed, fever bright. 13 steps. They say never go down. But I went. I looked. The air around him felt colder, pressing against my skin. "What did you see?" The words left me before I could stop them. Elias laughed. It was not loud. It was worse. Low, broken, like glass ground into dust. "Wings," he whispered. "Wings bound in ash, chains through bone. Eyes burning through stone. It spoke to me, promised me freedom, promised me fire." I backed away, but he leaned forward, pressing his face against the bars. "You think these men are prisoners. They are masks, meet to hide the truth. The prison is not theirs, it is his." The lantern flickered. The flame bent toward him as if drawn to his breath. Father Paulo's voice echoed in my memory. "Do not listen when Elias speaks." But I could not move. Elias lowered his voice to a whisper. "The 13th step is waiting for you. It always waits. You will go down. You will pray. You will bleed, and then you will break." He reached one hand through the bars. The skin hung loose, pale and cracked, but the fingers shook with strength. He tapped once against the iron. "Chains break," he hissed. I stumbled back, almost dropping the lantern. The flame steadied only when I tore my eyes away from him. The rest of the corridor was silent. Every prisoner watched, but none spoke. When the bell tolled, I locked the gate with shaking hands. Father Paulo was waiting. He looked at me once, and his jaw tightened. "You listened to him." I nodded, unable to lie. Paulo's eyes burned with anger. You do not understand. His words are hooks. Every syllable digs into you. Listen too long, and you will speak them yourself. That is how chains fail, not from strength, from the tongue. I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw, as if the words Elias had spoken still scraped inside. That night I lay in my cot, lantern guttering low, and closed my eyes. But in the dark, I heard him again, not through the bars, through the walls. The fourth night began with silence so deep it hurt my ears. No whispers, no laughter, just the sound of my boots on stone. The calm broke halfway down the corridor. One voice rose from the dark, low, trembling, like a monk chanting alone. Then another joined, then another. Within seconds, the whole prison sang, the wailing choir. It was not prayer. It was prayer twisted. Psalms turned backward, syllables bent until they scraped the air raw. Latin I almost knew but could not recognize. The prisoners clutched their bars, swaying in rhythm, eyes rolled back. The song echoed through the walls, vibrating the lantern in my hand. The flame bent with the beat, pulsing like a heart. I pressed myself against the gate, lips moving through the same prayer Father Paolo had taught me. My words drowned in their hymn. The voices grew louder, layered into a single roar that shook the corridor. The stones seemed to breathe, swelling and shrinking with the song. I glanced at Elias. He was not singing. He was laughing. His hands drummed against the bars, keeping time. His eyes burned with fever. "They call him," he whispered between fits of laughter. "They call the bound seraph. Every note is a chain undone." The air turned heavy. My lungs seized. The hymn pressed down on me like a weight, forcing me to my knees. The prisoner in white stood in his cell, head tilted back, mouth open wide. No sound came from him, but his body shook in rhythm with the choir. His hands stretched toward the ceiling, trembling. The bars groaned. The floor cracked. I forced the prayer through clenched teeth, every word tearing my throat raw. My vision blurred. The lantern flickered, shadows stretching long and sharp across the walls. Then the choir shifted. They sang my name. Emilio. Once, then again, hundreds of voices overlapping, weaving it into their hymn. My heart pounded, my lips parted. For a moment I wanted to join, to let my voice blend with theirs, to let the pressure in my chest release into the song. Elias slammed his hands against the bars, screaming over the choir. "Sing, brother, sing, and you will see him." The hymn climbed higher, faster, until the stones rattled and the chains above the cells quivered. Then the bell tolled, the 13th bell. The sound tore through the choir, ripping the hymn apart. The prisoners dropped to the floor. Silence slammed into the corridor like a wall. My lantern guttered. Elias leaned close to the bars, smiling wide. "They almost had you. Next time they will." The night after the choir, Father Paolo said nothing. He only looked at me with those black eyes, as if measuring how much of me had already cracked. It was Sister Maria who broke the silence. She came to me in the chapel at dawn, a bundle of papers pressed to her chest. "You should see the records," she whispered, "before you end like the rest." She led me through a narrow stairwell into a stone chamber I had not seen before. Dust filled the air, thick enough to choke. Shelves sagged under the weight of ledgers bound in leather, their spines cracked and black. Maria lit a single candle. Its flame barely reached the corners of the room. "These are the prisoners," she said, setting the bundle on a desk. "Everyone who entered these halls, their crimes, their years of penance, their fates." I opened the top ledger. The ink was faded, but I could still read the names. Priests, bishops, men who once held authority. Most entries ended with the word transferred. No location, no explanation, just transferred. I flipped to the back. Here the handwriting was different, hurried, as if written in fear. Names were scratched through with red ink, so violently the parchment tore. Why are these gone? I asked. Maria's face was pale in the candlelight. Because they no longer exist. Vatican erased them from records, from history. Their names were offered to chains, her voice shook. Do you understand? This prison is not built for men. It never was. The air pressed heavier. My stomach turned. I flipped another page and froze. There, written in bold strokes, was a name I knew. Corrado, a brother I had studied beside, a friend. He vanished years ago, and Vatican said nothing. His name was crossed out in red. Beside it was a mark, jagged and alien, burned into the page. I touched it. The parchment was warm. Maria slapped my hand away. Do not. My throat dried. What does it mean? She looked at the door, as if afraid someone listened. It means Corrado is no longer yours to remember. He was given, like the others. The candle flickered. Shadows stretched across the walls, long and thin like chains. I closed the ledger, my hands trembling. Maria leaned closer. Her whisper was sharp. Paolo will tell you nothing, but the truth is written here. This prison holds names that were once men. But below, it holds what those names were traded for. A sound rolled through the stones, faint but clear. Knock. Both of us froze. Knock. Not from the walls this time, from beneath the floor. The candle sputtered. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Maria snuffed the flame with shaking fingers. We should not be here. She gathered the papers and pushed me toward the stairs. When we emerged into the corridor, the bell tolled once. The sound echoed too long, as if swallowed by something deep below. The rules were all I had. Each night I repeated them under my breath like armor. But even armor breaks. That night the halls felt different. The stones were damp, bleeding water from cracks that had not been there before. The smell of iron filled the air, sharp and metallic, as though the walls themselves were rusting. When I reached cell 7, the cold was worse than ever. My knees hit stone, prayers spilling fast, desperate. The lantern shook in my hand. I felt something stir behind the carved door, a breath rolling against me, wet and heavy. I finished the prayer and forced myself up, heart hammering. Then the screaming began. A prisoner 2 cells down slammed his head against the bars, blood streaking his face. Another tore at his robe, shrieking words that bent like broken glass. Soon the entire row erupted, voices rising, fists pounding, bodies thrashing. And I saw them. They stood between the cells, tall, thin, faceless, their skin pale and stretched tight like wax, their heads smooth and featureless. They did not walk, they glided, silent as smoke. The faceless inmates. One passed close to me. Though it had no eyes, I felt its gaze, sharp and endless, sliding under my skin. My lantern flickered, flame bending backward as though repelled. Rule 4. Count every cell each morning, even the empty ones. Empty was not empty. Empty was theirs. I backed away. My boot scraped stone too loud, and every faceless head turned at once. The cold deepened, my breath freezing in my throat. Elias laughed over the chaos. He clung to his bars, eyes wild, voice sharp. You forgot, brother. You forgot the count. Do you see them now? Do you see what hides inside your numbers? The figures leaned toward me, bodies bending unnaturally, arms too long, fingers thin as knives. One drifted close enough that I felt cold breath against my cheek. The prisoners shrieked louder, thrashing in rhythm with the faceless. I dropped to my knees, whispering the prayer again, faster, louder, till the words blurred into one long cry. My tongue ached, my throat tore. The faceless froze. Their heads tilted back, listening. The screaming stopped. One by one, they melted into the dark, dissolving like smoke into the cracks of the stone. The corridor fell silent, sudden and absolute. I collapsed against the wall, clutching the lantern to my chest. The glass was cracked, the flame barely alive. My hands shook so violently I could not hold the keys. Elias whispered from his cell, his grin wide in the dark. 1 chain breaks, 10 follow. The count is everything. And you gave it away. I staggered back to my quarters at dawn, hands bloodied from gripping iron too tight. Sister Maria was waiting. She saw my face and did not need to ask. She led me to the chapel, closed the doors, and set a candle between us. "You broke a rule," she said softly. "I prayed at 7, I rasped. Her eyes narrowed. "Not that one, the count. Did you walk the cells at dawn? Did you speak the numbers aloud?" My stomach sank. I had not. Maria's voice shook. "Then you left the empties unclaimed. When you fail to count, they do. Every number is a chain, Emilio. That is why we count even the empty. To remind the chains who they belong to." The candle flame bent sideways, pulled by a draft I could not feel. I whispered, "And if the chains belong to them?" Maria blew out the candle. Her face vanished in the dark. "Then the prison will no longer hold." Above us the bell tolled. Once, twice, 13 times. Each strike rang too long, shaking the stone beneath our feet. The 13th bell would not leave my ears. Each strike echoed through my chest long after the sound had died. By the next night, the halls felt wrong, stretched thin, like the stone itself was waiting. Elias was waiting too. He stood at the bars before I even reached his cell, grinning with teeth too sharp in the lantern light. His hands bled from clawing the iron, but he did not seem to notice. "Did you hear them?" he whispered. "Did you hear the bells call? 13 rings, 13 steps, you know where they are." I shook my head, walking faster. He laughed, broken and raw. "You already walk with them in your dreams. Your feet move and the stairs open. You will see. You will see him." The lantern guttered. The corridor tilted, shadows sliding down the walls. By the time I reached cell 7, the cold was unbearable. I forced the prayer through clenched teeth, my voice shaking, words scraping my throat, but the stone trembled anyway, as though something beneath it stirred in reply. I tried to move on, but the floor cracked, just a hairline fracture, running between the stones like a vein. From it rose a breath, wet and slow. I pressed forward, desperate to finish the patrol. But at the far end, the air shifted again. The chapel door was open. I should not have gone inside. I should have locked it, prayed, and turned away. But the lantern pulled me, its light bending toward the altar. The floor in front of it was wrong. Dust had been brushed aside, as if by unseen hands. The flagstones were cut different here, marked with shallow grooves. I knelt, tracing them with shaking fingers. They formed a spiral, a circle. I pressed the edge of the key against one groove. The stone clicked. The altar shifted. And beneath it, darkness. A staircase winding down into the earth, narrow and wet, the steps worn by centuries. 13 steps. The lantern flame bent downward, eager, hungry. Cold air rushed up to meet me, carrying the stench of ash and rot. From below came a sound, chains dragging, slow, steady, and beneath it a voice, not loud, not soft, just vast. "Emilio." I stumbled back, heart hammering. My lantern shook, spilling wax on my hand. Footsteps thundered behind me. Father Paolo seized my arm, dragging me from the altar. His face was carved in fury, eyes black as coal. "What have you done?" he hissed. "The stairs!" My voice broke. "They were already here. I only—" "You looked," he snapped. "That is enough. Looking is always enough." He shoved the altar back into place, the stone grinding shut with a groan that rattled the walls. I stared at him, chest heaving. "What is down there?" His grip tightened on my arm until I thought the bone would snap. "Do not ask, do not speak, do not think of it again." But I could still hear the chains, still hear my name. I could not keep the stairs from my mind. Even when the altar was sealed, I heard them in the silence. 13 steps, winding into black. On the 7th night after the choir, the stone gave way again. It began with Cell 7. My prayer faltered. The door shook. The cold spread faster, crawling into my bones. The lantern flame bent sideways, pointing toward the chapel, and then the altar moved on its own. The spiral glowed faintly, grooves burning like fresh cuts. Dust fell as the stone ground open, revealing the same stairway yawning down into the dark. I should have fled. Instead, I descended. Each step was slick with moisture, carved by centuries of feet. My hand brushed the wall, wet stone warm to the touch. The lantern dimmed with every step, shadows clinging to me like claws. 13 steps. At the bottom was a chamber, vast, hollow. The ceiling vanished into darkness. Chains stretched from the walls toward the center, hundreds of them, rusted and groaning. And there it was, the bound seraph. Wings blackened, feathers burnt into ash that drifted with every breath. Chains pierced through bone, through ribs, through limbs. The figure towered, bent but not broken, its body glowing faintly like embers buried in coal. Its face was hidden in shadow. Only its eyes burned. They were not flames. They were voids rimmed with fire. When it looked at me, my knees buckled. The lantern died. The voice came without sound, filling my chest, scraping my skull. Watcher, my teeth rattled. My body shook as if the word itself was a chain around me. You keep them above, it whispered. But I keep you. I tried to speak, but no words came. My lips moved uselessly. Chains shifted, dragging against stone. Sparks burst in the dark, falling like dying stars. The sound was endless, as though every link was alive. Elias's laughter cut through the chamber. He was there, crouched at the base of the stairs, his hands bleeding, his eyes wide with joy. You see him, he cried. You see what waits. Do you feel it? Do you feel the fire in your blood? I stumbled back. How did you? He slammed his hands against the stone. I was chosen before you. I looked, I prayed, but I did not break. And so I stayed. And so I listened. The seraph turned its gaze to him. Chains tightened, dragging Elias forward until his face pressed against the floor. Blood-smeared stone. Still, he laughed. Take me, Elias begged. Take me as your mouth. Let me speak your chains into dust. The seraph's eyes shifted back to me. The pressure doubled. My chest burned, ribs cracking beneath weight that was not there. Do you hear it, Emilio? Do you feel the breaking? My vision swam. I tried to crawl toward the stairs, but my limbs were heavy as iron. My nails tore against stone. Then hands seized me, strong, human. Paolo dragged me up the steps, his breath harsh, his face carved in fury. The altar groaned above as he shoved it shut, sealing the dark behind us. We collapsed in the chapel, both gasping. The lantern reignited on its own, flame trembling. Paolo's voice shook for the first time. You were never meant to see him. I pressed my hands to my chest, the echo of that voice still clawing through my ribs. But I did, I whispered. The altar did not stay shut. That night the stones trembled as if something beneath them pushed upward. Dust rained from the ceiling, torches sputtered, chains groaned deep below. Paolo forced the keys into my hand. You hold the halls, I will hold the gate. If it breaks, you run. He said it like an order, not a choice. The first sound was the choir. Their voices surged from every cell, louder than before, a hymn of triumph. The prisoners slammed themselves against iron, flesh tearing, bones breaking, but they did not stop singing. The second sound was chains. From beneath the chapel floor came the grind of iron, hundreds of links dragging as one. Sparks burst through the cracks. The altar split. The spiral glowed red, brighter than fire. The stone crashed open and the stairs vomited smoke. The bound seraph rose. Its wings scraped the walls, scattering ash that burned the air. Chains snapped one by one, breaking with thunder. The void of its eyes burned straight into me. The faceless came first, pouring through the corridors, pale bodies gliding, jaws stretching though they had no mouths. They pressed against the cells, merging with the prisoners until screams bled into song. Maria ran to me, clutching the codex she had hidden in her robes. She shoved it into my hands. Blood seals chains, yours not mine. If you want him bound again, it must be you. I opened it with shaking fingers. The pages burned, letters shifting like fire. Ritual words spilled across my mind, black and endless. The seraph's voice filled the chamber. Chains break. The torches died. Darkness swallowed everything but his glow. I tore my hand open on the edge of the lantern, blood spilling across the codex. The ink drank it. Symbols flared. The walls shook. Paolo roared a prayer and hurled himself at the altar. He pressed his hands to the stone, his body the last barrier between the seraph and the open air. The chains struck him like whips, tearing flesh, snapping bone, but he did not fall. "Finish it!" he screamed. I staggered to the center, drawing the circle as the codex commanded. My blood dripped across the stone, sigils burning into existence. My voice cracked as I forced the words out, prayers reversed, each syllable a wound in my throat. The faceless swarmed, gliding toward me. Maria swung a torch, fire-cutting shadows, but there were too many. They shrieked without mouths, soundless but deafening. The seraph pulled against its chains, each movement shattered stone, sparks raining like fire. Its wings unfurled, a storm of ash filling the chamber. Paolo's body bent under the weight, bones breaking, his voice still rising in prayer. The circle flared, my blood boiled on the stone, the symbols screaming with light, the seraph's eyes fixed on me. "Watcher, you cannot bind me, you cannot hold me, you are already mine." Every chain snapped at once. The chamber exploded with sound. A roar that split the walls. Paolo fell, crushed beneath the weight of broken iron. His hand stretched once toward me before it vanished in ash. Maria screamed. I pressed the codex to the ground, blood pouring from my palm, my voice raw and broken as I forced the final word out. The light burst. Chains writhed like serpents, wrapping the seraph's wings, dragging him back into the pit. Ash choked the air, burning my lungs. The altar slammed shut, sealing the dark with a thunderclap. Silence. The fire was gone. For the first time in weeks, the corridors were still. The prisoners sat in silence. Eyes dull, mouths shut. The choir had ended. The faceless had vanished. The stones no longer trembled under my feet. Maria walked beside me in the dawn light. She carried no records, no ledgers, only a candle that burned steady. Her face was pale, but there was relief in her eyes. The chapel had been repaired as best we could. The altar was cracked, but upright. The air still smelled of ash, but sunlight filtered through the high windows. It almost felt holy again. Paolo was gone, but his name had been spoken in prayer. We lit incense for him. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe he had not died for nothing. I took my watch as always, lantern steady in my hand. Cell 7 breathed, but softer now, as if the thing behind it slept. The prayer came easier. The silence that followed did not crush me. Days passed, the walls held, the chains did not stir. For the first time, I thought, perhaps it was over. Then one morning, a letter waited on my cot, parchment thick, wax seal deep red, stamped with the crest of a cardinal. I broke it open. "Brother Emilio, another prison awaits. Are you ready?" The words cut sharper than any chain. The bells rang outside, bright and triumphant, but all I heard was the sound of iron dragging in the dark.